today we're going to be making a foldable that just really expands what integers are and some of the things that we're going to be doing with integers. So what you should have is a half sheet of the long construction paper and a number line. So once you have that, we're going to get our long piece of construction paper and we're going to fold it hot dog style, or some people say a horizontal fold. So we'll be folding this horizontally. So take a second, make sure it's a really nice fold all the way across. These are a little tricky sometimes because they are so far apart, but try to get it the best you can. Also, maybe it wasn't cut perfectly to begin with, but there's my horizontal fold or my hot dog fold. So once you have that fold, you need to grab your glue stick and we are going to be gluing down your number line. The number line is going to go all the way to the right of your foldable and it's going to match this horizontal line. So this is a horizontal number line, which you could have a vertical line as well, which a lot of times we see in thermometers, stuff like that. But the horizontal number line, you're going to take and you're going to match up the arrow with that fold that you made down the middle. And then you're going to match up the other arrow as well with that fold and get that glued down with your glue stick or your glue, whatever you're using. And this is going to be all the way to the right of your foldable. Okay, the next step, once you get that glued down, is that we're going to take the whole left side and this open spot and we're going to fold it into that number line. Not touching the number line, but right up to it. So I'm going to fold that down quickly. Get it, make it a nice fold. And then to end our folding for today, you're gonna take the right side where the number line is, and you wanna try to get that fold right on the 0. So that should be half of that number line. So I'm actually just gonna put my finger at 0 and fold that over right at the number line. It really should almost touch the other side of the number line. Fold that down to where these two flaps basically fit into each other. Mine has a little gap and that's okay. So that's what we're going to use for our foldable today. We are going to make one quick cut, so you can definitely share scissors with your neighbors. So grab a scissor and you're going to make one flap cut, and that's going to be right here on the side that does not have the number line. So I'm going to go ahead and cut right here. That's going to give me 2 sections where we're going to learn some awesome things that we can do with integers. And you should be able to flap both of those sections open. You are not cutting the number line side, so once you have that done, you're good to go to the next part. Let's take a closer look at this foldable. We're going to start on the front, and this is a foldable all about integers. So I'm going to go ahead and make my title. Integers. And I'm going to, you see the fold that you have here? We didn't cut it, but I want you to mark it with a pen or pencil or marker, whatever you're using. And then I want you to make a line down because we're going to show some examples of integers, but we're also going to show some non-examples. Okay, at the top, we're going to go ahead and redefine integers. So integers are the set of whole numbers and their opposites. The set of whole numbers and their opposites. Some examples that we talked about yesterday are anything that is a whole number, but also the opposite of positive whole numbers. So a 0 is really important because 0 is definitely an integer, but 1 is an integer, so is -1. So there's 1 and its opposite of -1. Then you have, I could do 55, and 55's opposite is -55. So any number and its opposite would be considered an integer. So feel free to make up some of your own. If you're making up some of your own, that's fine. I might also just maybe put a fun one like -1,512. 20. Some students think that integers always have to be negative, and that's not true because it does include whole numbers. Some non-examples of integers would be a number with a decimal, so 0.5. You guys know this is also, or 5/10, excuse me. You guys also know that this is half, so half definitely works to be a non-example. A mixed number, whether it's a fraction or a decimal, you have 2 and 5/8. Could be an example, a non-example of an integer. These would both be called rational numbers. Maybe a percentage, even a negative percentage, which I don't really know where you would use that, but why not? Negative 38%. Or maybe a negative 10 would be an integer, but if I stick a fraction with it, like half, then it's no longer an integer and it's a rational number. So I've been telling you guys, and I mentioned it here, the opposite of 55 is negative 55. The opposite of negative 1 is 1. So we're going to dig deeper into this word opposites. So your first flap at the top here is going to be opposites. And then just to get this front part completed, the next thing we're going to talk about is something called an absolute value. So underneath that, our next tab is going to be called absolute value. And then we'll get the inside of these filled in. So let's start with opposites, because this is something I talked about it yesterday, I talked about it again today, and we haven't really defined it. So let's really see what I'm talking about when I say opposites. So go ahead and open up your opposites flap. Today we're going to do a definition on the left, and we're going to do an example on the right. So for the definition, opposites are two numbers that are equal distance from 0 on the number line. Opposites are two numbers. I'm going to use my number symbol here. Opposites are two numbers that are equal distance from 0 on a number line. So this example should hopefully make this more clear so I can actually show you a number line and what I'm talking about. So we're going to jot a quick number line down from -4 to 4. So here's maybe the best way to draw this. I'm going to draw a line from one side to the other, and I'm going to mark 0 first. And then I want to go to +4 and -4, and to the best of your ability, make sure these are spaced equally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and go ahead and label those. And then I'm going to try to do the equal distance on the other side. It might not be perfect, but just try to make it the best you can. So let's go back to our definition. It says opposites are two numbers that are equal distance from 0 on the number line, because there's only exactly two numbers that could be equal distance. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If I go to 3 on the number line, so make me an arrow down to 3. If I start at 0, this is 1, 2, 3 units away from 0. So what is equal distance on the other side? 1, 2, 3 units. So I need to go from 0 to 3 is 3 units. 0 to -3 is also 3 units. So it's not a -3 units. I actually went 3 spaces. So these are your opposites. And I want you to show that from 0, you went 3 units to the right and 3 units to the left. They are equal distance from 0. So what this tells us is that 3 and -3 are opposites. I hope that helps clear it up. We're going to take a look at a few more opposites in a little bit. So now let's talk about this interesting absolute value that we need to know about. Absolute value gets confused a lot by students because they confuse opposites and absolute value. So when I'm discussing absolute value, I really want you to try to remember the difference between what we just talked about over here, two numbers that are equal distance from 0, and what we're going to talk about with absolute value. So what I'm talking about right now is not opposites, it is absolute value. So here's your definition, and we'll see if we can figure out what it's talking about. Absolute value is the distance from the distance of a number from 0 on the number line. The absolute value, and write a little bit smaller, this definition is a little bit bigger. The absolute value is the distance of a number from 0 the distance of a number, I'm going to use that number symbol, from 0 on the number line. Absolute value is a distance of a number from 0 on the number line. And then I want to make a note here, and we're gonna talk about what this means, but this is always positive. It's definitely not true for opposites. Opposites don't have to be positive. The opposite of a -4 is +4, but the opposite of 10 is -10. So the answer can be negative, but for absolute values, your answers are positive. That's because, and I'm going to use B/C for because. You can write the word if you need to, because distance is always positive. I'm just going to put a little positive sign there. Distance is always positive, and we'll talk about that as well. So just like we did for opposites, I want you to go ahead and draw me that same number line. So I'm going to draw a number line starting at 0 and going to 4. And then heading to -4. Let's talk about this. On opposites, we had opposite of 3 is -3. The opposite of 1 is -1. The opposite of -2 is 2, because they are the same distance from 0. This doesn't say anything about a connection to another number. It just wants the distance from one number and 0. So I'm going to show you an example. If I want to know the absolute value of -4, this is what it looks like. This symbol is your absolute value symbol. It's just two straight lines down and then -4. So this actually tells me what is the absolute value of -4. That's how I would read this symbol. So your absolute value symbol is two lines around a number, and when it's -4, so I'm going to go ahead and put a dot at -4. I want the absolute value of -4. Well, it says that it's the distance from 0 on the number line. Well, if I start at 0 and I go to -4, I need to move 4 units. Well, distance is always positive. I'm not going to get a ruler out and say this is -15 inches. Well, no, it's 15 inches even if it's in the negative direction. So because I moved 4 units, that means the distance from 0 is just 4. I moved 4 spots. I did kind of show you that here. This is 3 units. Yes, it is in the negative direction, but it's 3 units from 0. This is 4 units from 0, so my answer is a +4. Let's look at a positive one. And this is where some people are like, wait, what? So let's take a look at it. If I wanted to stop at 3, this is how the question would look. The absolute value of 3. What is the absolute value of 3? If I write this, that's what they're saying. The absolute value is the distance from 0. So I am only 3 units away from 0. So the distance is 3. So whether you have a negative number in your absolute value or a positive number, it doesn't really matter because your answer is going to be positive. It is the distance from 0 and not the opposite from 0. So I don't want to say, okay, what's on the other side of the number line, which is what opposites do. Hopefully you can see the major difference in those two and not have the misconception of thinking one is the other. We're going to take another look at that in a little bit. So go ahead and open up your other side. And we're going to make some notes in here just to make integers a little more clear to you, hopefully. And then we will be done. So make sure that your spacing on this is really clear because I have a lot of things I want to put on here for you guys. So just watch your spacing. The first thing that we need to talk about is positive and negative. And we're just going to make a quick note. Anything, and I'm going to make my little face guy. These are all considered, and notice this does continue on, so I'm not saying that it stops there. But these are called positive integers. They are also called natural numbers. But in this case, we're going to call them integers because they are also integers. So on this number line, notice I did not include 0. I am not including 0 in this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm also not talking about the numbers in between because those would be rational numbers. So I'm not talking about those. I'm literally talking about the numbers that you physically see are called positive integers. So this is our positive side, and these numbers are greater than 0. Not including 0. Then I have my numbers on the opposite side. So now we've opened up this whole new world of numbers to you guys. And can anyone guess what these are called? We could call these a bunch of things. They could be negative rational numbers if we were including the numbers between. But I'm just talking about the numbers that you physically see. So these are going to be negative integers. I cannot call these negative whole numbers because that's not the name for them. The name is integers. These are negative and they are less than 0. So you might be saying, well, you never said anything about 0, so what am I supposed to think about 0? So 0 is a special number. And I do want you to make a note that it is neither positive nor negative. It is just 0. It is nothing, so it can't be positive or negative. I'm just going to use a positive sign. Neither positive nor negative. 0 is just nothing, so it doesn't count as a positive or negative. Okay, that's the bottom part, and we're going to add a few things to the top. I want you to experience a few little real-world situations that might happen with integers and your whole number side, maybe your natural numbers. So let's start on the negative. Oh, actually, let's start on the positive side, since this is maybe what you're more used to. This is what you've experienced before. So up here, I want you to do 3 bullets. But you need to give yourself space under these bullets. So notice I have plenty of space under that where I am going to be writing more. So I'm just going to pop in some real world situations for you guys where you might see this. So to gain 10 yards in football, that would be a positive situation because you're gaining. To gain 10 yards in football. And your positive word is gain. Another one is earning $50, so to earn. I earned $50 for mowing a neighbor's yard. That would be a positive situation. Also, I'm going to put in a word that you guys might not be that familiar with, but it's called ascending. And I'm just going to put it here next to this. Many times students are much more familiar with descending, to meaning to go down. Maybe you're descending down a mountain, or you are descending in the airplane. So you've taken off and now you're landing and the plane is descending. Well, ascending is the opposite of that. So ascending would mean you're taking off in an airplane, you're ascending into the sky, or you are ascending up a mountain. So you're starting your hike and you're going up. So notice I said opposite of that, which goes with our opposites. All right, and last few, we're just gonna pop in some words. Increase would be moving in a positive direction. Above, a lot of times you see above sea level. It's a very common integer word. And then one, deposit, which may be new to some of you guys, but deposit means you are putting money in the bank. So your account at the bank is growing. That means that it's getting larger. So you have a deposit. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing on the negative side. And we're gonna think about opposites here because that's kind of what we're looking at. So on the negative side, give me 3 bullets. Sorry, I gotta pick a color. Okay. I've picked my color, 3 bullets. And we're actually just gonna kind of talk about opposites because that's what negative numbers are. They're opposite of the positive number. We just saw that over here in our opposite explanation. So one that they love to say, so I'm gonna put it here, but it's the opposite of above, which is below. So we're gonna put in a real world situation. So 10 feet below sea level. You will hear a lot of sea level questions. So it's usually above or below. Maybe I dove 10 feet below sea level, and that means that you went in the negative direction. So let's talk about earning. If I earned $50, the opposite of that would be to spend. And maybe this time I'm only spending 15 so I can save a little bit. And then instead of ascending, like we talked about, you are descending down the mountain. You are going in a negative direction. I am descending in an airplane. And then the opposite of increase is decrease. So I actually like to underline these so you know that they are the word that represents that. To lose, so maybe you earned, maybe you lost, maybe you gained, maybe you lost 10 yards in the football game. So lose, lost. And then the opposite of deposit is something called withdraw. As a 6th grader, you need to be familiar with this word. It means you are taking money out of the bank. So maybe you're writing a check and you are withdrawing money from the bank. You're using your credit card, which withdraws money from the bank. Or maybe you are just going to the bank and you're getting money out. That would be withdraw, and deposit is the opposite, where you are putting money into your bank account. All right, the last thing we're gonna do is just kind of reiterate opposites and absolute values, and then we will be done and we can glue this in our notebook. So the last thing I want you to show is I want you to make a line down and use the most space you can. So a line, I'm gonna make a line straight down to -8 as high up as I can. So what I mean is I'm going to the utmost part as I can. The opposite of 8 is the number the same distance from 8 on this, from between 8 and 0. So I know that there are 8 sections between 8 and 0. So I need to go 8 more sections, and I'm gonna make that same line down. If you have a straight edge or a ruler or that's something you want to use, feel free. I'm going to grab my journal because I like it to be super straight, and I'm going to make a nice straight line between these 2 arrows. We're going to do the same thing for one more number, but I wanted you to see that the opposite of -8 is 8. The opposite of 8 is -8. It goes both ways. So I want you to write, not real big, but you're going to write opposites here. They are the same distance from 0 on the number line. And I want you to do the same thing for -6, but you're going to draw your arrow up to the word opposite. So something like this. 6, and what is its opposite? +6. So a -6 and +6 are opposites of each other. I'm going to grab my little straight edge again real quick, and I'm going to make a nice straight line between those. So you can see that what I have in this color, and maybe you're not changing colors and that's fine, but you can see that these are opposites because I have it labeled there. So that's your reminder of opposites, noticing that they're the same distance from zero. Well, absolute value is a number's distance from zero, so that does look different. So we're going to represent that right underneath this. So the next thing we're going to talk about is absolute value. So the absolute value of 2 is 2. And you can show that because its distance from 0 is 2. 2 spaces. And then the absolute value of a -5 is a +5. Because the distance from 0 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, you are moving in the negative direction, but that is not what the question's asking. It's asking for distance, and distance is always positive. So there is your beautiful foldable with tons of wonderful information about integers. Go ahead and get that glued in your notebook, and definitely refer back to this so that you can be great integer students. Smash that like button, subscribe!